Well, welcome back into the Invest Well Show. Again, I'm your host, Michael Wall, and we're going to talk today kind of a little bit of a transition or add-on conversation to what we discussed in the last show. Last show, we talked about the financial transaction tax, which is the idea of taxes happening every time that stocks are being bought and sold. That's something that is being proposed. And today, I want to talk about the wealth tax. So, Senator Warren is coming out and saying, hey, we want to propose this new wealth tax, and it's only going to be really effective or really affect, let me say, those that are worth $50 million or more. Now, initially you hear that and like, oh, good, I'm good, I don't have to worry about it. Unfortunately, when you look at how things work down through the trickle effect, you probably will be affected. So this is huge. We got to talk about this, and we are seeing a major change in the tax structure and the design for really just kind of capturing dollars, looking for ways for the government to increase revenue, and all these kinds of things in a very short period of time with this administration change. So we're going to talk about all that today on the Invest Well Show. As always, I want to thank you for tuning in. Listen, I know there's a lot of content out there that you can go and find and listen, so thanks for dialing into the show. We want to thank our sponsors as well, companies of leanonthewall.com. You just go to leanonthewall.com if you have questions about your wealth specifically. You want more of a little bit of a, personal touch. Maybe you're in a place where you don't want to just drive through the car wash. You want it actually to be hand buff, right? You want some additional assistance. Well, leanonthewall.com, a couple companies there to help you protect, grow, and reduce taxes on your wealth. So head over, check them out. All right, let's jump in here because, it's so interesting. There's a gentleman, and I want to make sure I get his name right. It's kind of a funky name, but Grover Norquist, and he has a group called Americans for Tax Reform. And he's talking on CNBC. I'm going to play this clip in a minute. But he's talking on CNBC about the effect of this wealth tax and how a lot of times, politically things are pitched in such a way that first off, let me say that they know how to wordsmith. The politicians know how to wordsmith, and this is both sides of the aisle, okay? But when it comes to your finances, when it comes to your investments, when it comes to your net worth, when it comes to your portfolio, one of the questions that we have to ask is, what do we need to be aware of? What is potentially coming down the pike, and how can we prepare for it? One of the things that happened during the Trump administration is they actually increased the amount of monies that was able to be transferred, the period of time, and some things that happened. Now, there was one thing that occurred as well, the transition of inherited IRAs. There was a period of time where that had reduced from, you can't distribute monies the way you used to, so some of that's changed. And now we're starting to see changes and at least desire for changes in relation to financial transaction tax and wealth tax. And all of these metrics will affect markets, will affect investments. And the question is, how will they affect them? And what will that leave and do for you in the process of that? And what steps really should you be taking? So I want to take a minute and play this clip from Grover. And I think it'll help you to listen to what he has to say, but also then I want to comment on that. And that'll help us understand a little bit further what's going on here.
The idea that this is only going to hit the rich people. That was the sales pitch for the alternative minimum tax. Only get 155 people. It was scheduled to go to 30 million people before the Republicans pulled it back. The income tax was only going to hit people who had about $11 million of income. In today's dollars, it's now half of the country. Senator Warren has said, why would you be scared of this? It's just like your property taxes on your home. It'll be a federal property tax in a matter of several decades.
So isn't that interesting? When he talks about how the income tax that was proposed a couple years ago, was only supposed to connect or affect those that made over $11 million a year. And guess what? It's now half the country. So no wonder when Senator Warren says, listen, this is only going to affect people that have over $50 million. Hey, if you have less than $50 million, don't worry about it. In fact, don't even do any research on this. Don't even think about this because we care about you. I think you know by now politicians really, most of the time, don't care about you for the most part. They really just care about what's in it for them, right? WIIFM, what's in it for them. That's what they're listening to each and every day. So this is so important when we take a look at taxes and the process. Now, one of the things that I have seen over the years is we've been helping families, and I've helped families, and we've shared advice and just commented on these types of issues, is the fact that every time, almost, let me blanket it with the almost every time a new tax comes out, There's always some type of loophole that's created. You know, it's interesting when you see a lot of these, folks, maybe politicians or families that have larger net worths. One of the things you see is they will hire and pay a lot of money for quality attorneys and consultants and coaches along the way. Why? Well, because they are hiring people that are going to research the law and understand where the loopholes are. So I think that's one of the first things we got to be looking at here as this tax is proposed. If it does come out, she's slating it almost like Senator Warren, almost like, hey, it's just going to be like kind of like a property tax. It'll be no big deal. Well, we need to be understanding where the loopholes are. And by the way, the property tax structure is a big deal. I mean, where else can you think about the fact that you pay off something and you pay a massive tax every year for what you already own? It's crazy. I mean, the American dream is to be successful, is to grow their wealth, is to independently have your own home, right? And when you have your home, be in a place where you can pay it off. And now, for years and years and years and years, what's been said is, hey, now your home's been paid off. That's wonderful. We need to make sure that we also still charge you a property tax. And that property tax is important because it's going to help fund school districts and all kinds of things. Well, I think the question that we got to ask is, how well do we think the public school districts are doing? Would you say on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being really good, 1 being like not so good, how are the public school districts doing? Well, a lot of them are not doing that great. And the main reason is because obviously government officials and governments as a whole don't do a real good job of managing money. Especially when it's not theirs. I mean, think about your own personal situation, maybe other people that you may know. Think about how well they do managing their own money, right? We all need help. That's why you're listening to this show. Hopefully you continue to go back and listen to previous podcasts. Hopefully you're listening to this show and watching it on YouTube, other venues in the future because you want to stay tuned into what's happening. We need help and advice and encouragement and guidance along the way, right? I mean, how often have you known, well, I probably shouldn't spend the money here, probably shouldn't spend the money there, but I end up doing it? So this is why we need coaching in the process. If this tax is proposed and it does come down the pike, it will come down the pike. I mean, just like the minimum wage process where they're saying we need to raise it to $15 an hour. Well, what are we starting to see? We're starting to see organizations like McDonald's and other fast food organizations that are saying we can't absorb this. We just can't absorb. We can't financially absorb it, and it actually costs us less in the long run to bring in technology that actually can do a better job than humans, doesn't make mistakes like humans, doesn't create theft like humans, and gives us the ability to actually be more efficient as an overall company. That's what these brands and companies will do. Now, that is opportunistic when we think about where we should be investing our money. And again, for the last 2 shows, I've talked a little bit about the idea of taxes because taxes are a big part of what we are doing when we invest. You know, the old I think it was Will Rogers, if I remember correctly, he said, there are only 2 things that are guaranteed in life: death and taxes. Only 2 things guaranteed in life: death and taxes. So we got to make sure that we understand how to navigate these things, and we got to be prepared for what happens if taxes do increase. What are ways to mitigate that? You got to stay tuned to this show. We're going to talk about some ideas in the future in relation to that. But I at least wanted to make you aware of this new wealth tax that is being proposed and being talked about because there's a lot of noise out there in the media. And boy, they do a good job from the politicians' perspective of candy coating these ideas and helping you feel like, wow, they really care about me. They really care about us. They really care about our country. And yet I would beg to say they don't. So it's so important for us to understand what's actually happening and unpacking this wealth tax. It's going to be a big, big deal. We got to be staying tuned to that. I want to make you aware of that and be paying attention because we're going to talk about some strategies and tips if this does roll out that you can be doing to help protect yourself and shield yourself and really help go down the path of what I like to say legally, morally, and ethically disinheriting the IRS. Very important in the journey. Hey, listen, if you were not familiar with this wealth tax and you're like, wow, I never heard about that, Mike. Thanks for sharing that. I really enjoyed this show. Take a minute and share this with 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 10 or 50 or 100 or 1,000, whatever people that you know, whether you share it socially on Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, share it via text with folks that you know. People need to be aware of this. Listen, as we all together understand what's actually happening with our country, which is one of the goals of the show, is to empower you, to help you to understand what's happening. As we do that, you're going to be in a place, and we will be in a place as a country where we will not be just subject to soundbite media. Whatever the news, whatever CNN or Fox Business or CNBC or whoever it is, whatever soundbite media they throw at us, we're going to be more educated in the process. That's going to empower us as people and hopefully fare better for the country. I believe it will. So thanks for tuning into the Invest Well Show today. And as always, my desire is for you to live on purpose so you can live with purpose. Have a great one, and we'll talk to you next show. Thank you for listening to the Invest Well Show. Please note that this information shared on the show is not investment advisory advice, and it may not be reflective of your personal situation or the needs that you have. If you have questions specific to your financial situation, please make sure that you reach out to an investment advisor directly or a tax attorney or tax coach or CPA to help you with your personal situation. Any additional questions that you may have, please make sure that you seek out a professional to get the guidance needed for your specific situation. Again, all content and information shared on this show is not to be deemed as specific investment advisory advice.